Women either view you as somebody they potentially sleep with or an NPC. Most guys end up in the NPC category because they're having friendly, boring conversations. The way to break out of this is through flirting. Flirting engages the girl's emotions and it creates tension and images in her mind. My name's Joseph, by the way, and when I was younger, all I wanted to be able to do was express myself confidently and be able to go on dates with women like I saw other guys doing. I read all of the books, I got mentorship, and I practiced every day. A common problem I see when coaching men is they think that flirting gives away their power or pedestalizes the girl, which it doesn't have to if you do it correctly. I want to give you the 4 flirting techniques that create the right vibe without being needy so you can have conversations that actually engage her emotions and lead to romantic connections. The first one's called disqualification. This is where you're disqualifying the idea of having sex, a relationship, or hanging out with the girl. For example, you might say something like, I feel like you and I should just be friends and just nothing more. Or it's too bad you're so short, I only date tall girls. Now, when you hear about this technique for the first time, it almost sounds counterproductive to getting the girl. It's like, why are you pushing the girl away? Why are you disqualifying her if you're actually trying to go on a date with her, if you're actually trying to hang out with her, right? But let me explain why this actually works. By the nature of saying something like, I feel like we're not gonna get along, number one, you're bringing the idea of you and the girl hanging out or relationship or sex into the forefront of the conversation where it probably didn't exist before, right? Like, let's say I go up to a girl with a very indirect open. I ask her for an opinion or I make some random comment. Well, if I continue to just talk about the weather and I talk about current events, then the girl isn't thinking about me and her. She's just thinking about stuff and things. And it doesn't actually matter that it's in the negative, that I'm actually disqualifying her. Like, for example, if I walked up to a police officer and I said, hey, I'm not going to spray paint that car over there when you leave. Well, he's not just going to ignore the fact that I said I'm not going to do it because I've just planted that idea in his mind. It's like if I said, don't think of a giant walrus who's riding a surfboard right now. You can't just not think about it. And number 2 is that it creates that man to woman frame, but without giving your power away. Saying, I really think that we're gonna get along is seeking rapport, right? It's giving power away. When saying, I feel like we're not gonna get along, it establishes that frame, but without giving my power away. Seeking rapport is something you only wanna do later in the interaction where you've already built value and when the girl has already shown an inclination to wanna invest and really wanna qualify herself to you. But when you're seeking rapport early on, it seems needy and it seems inauthentic. Number 3 is that it shows a degree of detachment from the outcome. When I'm willing to playfully push a girl away, it shows that I'm not walking on a thin tightrope of trying my hardest not to offend a girl in any which way. It implies that I actually have social proof that I'm not so needy that I absolutely need this conversation to work out. And number 4, disqualifying a girl gives her an actual reason to want to win you over. Rather than if I'm a guy who's just giving her validation after validation, well, at that point, she's already won me over. She doesn't need to do anything to prove herself to me. Now, with that being said, just like anything else I'm going to mention today, this can be overdone. When a guy first learns that he can actually spike a girl's emotions and engage her, he can tend to overuse it. And 2 things can happen there. A, she can actually start to recognize that you're doing the same thing over and over again, and it'll have diminishing returns, or she can be completely turned off and basically feel like she figured out your little game. B, what can happen is if you disqualify a girl over and over again, she can just feel like you don't like her. Now, as I'm teaching you this technique, if you find it hard to enter into conversations with women in the first place, or you're getting into conversations with women, but you're not emotionally engaging them how you want to, click the link in the description for an opportunity to actually work with me directly. The second technique is misinterpretation. This is where you frame something the girl does or says as her liking you or hitting on you. Let's say that the girl tells you she's about to buy, I don't know, a MacBook Pro. You could say, you know, you don't have to impress me with your gadgets. I like a girl by her personality. Like, I don't need all of that extra stuff. Now, this is great because you're creating the frame that she's trying to impress you, and you're in the position of higher value. Another one I use all the time is like, I feel like you keep looking at me in an objectifying way. Like, chill out, let's take it slow. So here you're implying that she wants you sexually. Almost 95% of men are afraid to sexualize things in conversation, and that is why they bore women. And I get it. They don't want to seem pervy, they don't want to seem weird. But the beauty of misinterpretation is you're framing her as the one hitting on you, so you can get away with it. Another example of this in game is instead of you bringing up yourself having sex or the girl having sex, you can bring up the idea of sex from an external idea or event. All right, let's say you're in a club and they're playing some really ratchet rap music. You could bring up to the girl or the group the fact that all they talk about in rap music is having sex. And you could get really deep and very descriptive on this too if you wanted to. And now guess what the girl is thinking about? And when you do it in this way, it gives you a ton of plausible deniability. And in most cases, it'll be completely normal, and she might even start adding on to that idea. But of course, you want to be gauging the girl's reactions always in game. And if you see that what you're doing is too much, then all you have to do is just back off, you switch subjects, and then you keep going. It's not the end of the world. And that's just one format I teach my clients to sexualize things. There are many more. More importantly, I help them with the exercises that allow them to come up with this stuff on their own in the moment. And the third technique is push-pull. This is where you vary giving the girl validation and then challenging her. Challenging her would be like the push, and then giving validation would be like the pull. Like, for example, you can say, I was enjoying this conversation until you just said that. Enjoying this conversation would be the pull until you just said that, push away. Or you're very energetic. I'm not sure if it's like a crazy energetic yet. What you're doing is instead of just giving her validation, which is boring, you're giving her a fluctuation of emotions. You're keeping things very interesting and engaging. And now, just like disqualification, yeah, you're spiking her emotions, but there's also a frame that's being subcommunicated that she hasn't won you over yet. It makes her want to invest in the conversation and your perception of her. So you're going to find that she starts asking you a lot of questions, filling in the silences of the conversation, and really trying to frame herself in the best possible light. If you're going up to women and you're only giving them compliments, first of all, good job, because you're ahead of 95% of men in 2025, but the bar is pretty low, so push-pull for you there. But secondly, when you're only giving a girl compliments, there's no tension over whether she can have you or not. So she doesn't have to take the actions to actually win you over or want to prove herself to you. It's already said and done. Now, push-pull isn't only a statement where you give a positive and a negative in rapid succession. It's also a dynamic that you probably want to have throughout the entire interaction, at least if you like women and you want to have good game. Okay, but when I give it together in rapid succession in one statement, it tends to have more power. It's sort of like if you get out of a hot sauna and you jump straight into an ice bath. It's also not just a verbal technique, it can be physical. So like I can hug a girl and be like, I hate you so much right now. Or I can kiss a girl and then pull away and be like, you're a terrible kisser. There's an infinite number of conversations where you can apply this push-pull dynamic. Number 4 is eye contact. This isn't a verbal technique, obviously, but I had to include it because it's so important. When you give a girl laser eye contact, almost every time she's gonna hold it right back with you. And then you get locked in with the girl, and there's almost a psychic connection going on where there's sexual tension between you guys, but it's completely nonverbal. You legitimately wanna look right in her eyes almost all the time, especially in the beginning of the interaction where you still basically need to hook her attention. I've actually done testing on this. I've done approaches where I've broken eye contact a lot, and I've done, of course, many approaches where I've had laser eye contact. And I found in the approaches where I break eye contact a lot, the girl will do the same. She'll start looking around in the same way that I start looking around. She loses engagement in the conversation, which often causes her to lose interest and walk away. What happens when you lock eyes with a girl is you're giving her your full attention. And she wants to return that same attention to you, and she gives you all of her focus. You're actually making her forget about her surroundings and enter into your little world where you can then work your magic. Now you know a few flirting techniques. The question is, are you actually going to implement them? And do you really want to make a change in your dating life, or do you want to be a seduction spectator? If you're serious about stepping into the new version of yourself who can confidently attract women in person, I want you to click the link below and apply for my 8-week private mentorship. But if you're someone who only wants to use dating apps, or you don't understand that wherever you meet a girl, you still have to communicate and escalate with her in person, then do not apply for my program. But that's all I have for the video today, guys, and I'll see you soon.